That's the sad part. But there's a good part. I'm not here only to give you a sad message. I'm here to give you a good one. I spent the last 10 years traveling all over the world, speaking at universities, speaking in churches, having camp meetings, having administrative. Here in the Southern Union, I was invited to have a whole series of worships with all the administrators of the Southern Union some years back. All over the world I'm going, and I'm noticing there's an awakening happening. Something is happening that's very interesting. It's a sad thing, but it's a happy thing. There's a polarization taking place. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is splitting in two, and that is never a fun process. But it is polarizing. And I mean, people are making choices about what side you're on. It is no longer a happy medium. No. There is not just in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, by the way, it's happening in all the world, I want you to know. It's happening in the evangelical churches, it's happening in the Catholic Church, it's happening in the secular world. There's a polarization. People are noticing something is very, very wrong. The Titanic, the deck is no longer level, and they want to know how to get off the ship. I get invited to speak in a lot of Pentecostal churches and Baptist churches, usually overseas, usually in Europe. Some in the States, but mostly in Europe. I accept whenever possible. And the overriding concern that they have is, how do we recognize the times that we're in, and how do we get ready to meet our God? It's not so great a concern in Seventh-day Adventists, but there is a polarization happening, and there's a concentrated understanding that's back to Scriptures. You know, when you live in Venezuela, you're aware of most of you hear it on the news, but those of us that live there, we're aware of some of the tensions, daily tensions, where the military and the border conflicts and everything is happening. I'm sure those that lived in the Middle East know more about it than I do. But as we deal with these issues, we're beginning to sense a spirit of war beginning to creep in. Is the nation going to be at war? What's going to happen? In Bolivia, recently, military airplanes from Venezuela have been flying down to Bolivia and making quick stops in some of the airports and dropping off machine guns everywhere. The influence of Venezuela has been to prepare other countries for war. There's a spirit in the world preparing for war. And I've been watching and I've been thinking, how do these generals know what to do? How do the North American generals know when and where to attack? How do these other countries defend themselves against their enemies? I've just been watching in general because I want to learn, because we're in warfare. In case you didn't know that, this is not peacetime. If you thought you were in peacetime, you're dead meat. This is not peacetime. Frontal attack has been declared against God's people, and the devil knows the very most effective way to destroy God's people is to keep them asleep. Just keep them asleep a little bit longer, we're told, and he has them, for their destruction is certain. So his warfare tactic is keep them asleep at all costs. I think I'll build myself a new house. I think I will buy a new car. Why? I think I have a bright future ahead of me. I think I will, yes, like at one of our universities in South America, I will make a 20-year strategic plan. 20-year strategic plan? Who ever heard of a 20-year strategic plan on a Titanic? There isn't such a thing as a 20-year strategic plan. It doesn't exist. The variables in the next few months are going to change so radically, none of your plans will work. That doesn't mean that you can't look at the future, but look at it realistically. Go on the internet. Ask yourself some of the Fortune 500 companies, how many of them have 20-year strategic plans? There aren't any 20-year strategic plans. You can't see that far into the future. Maybe a 5-year strategic plan. Those that are 1-year strategic plans are more likely to take place. 2-year, maybe. 3-year, possibly. 5-year, barely. 10-year, never. 20-year, absolutely not. And yet, we're going through and acting like everything is normal. And God is trying His best to wake up His people, and it's happening. The Holy Spirit is being poured out at the very same time. Did you know that in the last 6 months, if you were in warfare and missionary work of any kind, not just overseas, if you're in ministry here in this United States, aggressive ministry, you will have become aware of something. In the last 6 months, there's been a radical increase in spiritualistic activity in the world. It's not as easy to conquer the same territory as it used to be. You have much more opposition than you used to. There's more spiritualistic, there's more demonic attacks, there's more demonic influences. The military is involved in consulting demons. presidencies, kings. It's increasing. You can tell it. And I'll tell you why. It's because God is allowing the angels to release the winds of strife. And that tells me one thing. If Satan is allowed to have more possession of his people, I can tell you with a certainty that God is also taking possession of his people. It's happening right in front of your very eyes. And if you're not aware, it will go right over your head. You will never miss it. And so I asked myself, these generals, how do they make their decisions? And I came to the conclusion that it's called military intelligence. Military intelligence. Some of the Indians that I work with down in Venezuela, they're just Indians, supposedly, just Indians. But they have so much influence over their entire nation of Indians, and the village captains and the regional captains and the national captains. It's like another whole nation. I live right within a nation, just like we have the Cherokee Nation and so on. So I live right there. My wife and I live in 3 little thatch roof houses that the Indians built for us. And they go to see the president all the time. They're always dealing with the top generals, military joint chiefs of staff. And they're always telling me. They go in there, for example, did you know that when they go to a military meeting, the first thing they do is they have to take the battery out of their cell phone. I said, why? Why do you got to take the battery out of your cell phone? Because if the battery is still in your cell phone, they can listen to everything you're saying. And recently we found out on the news here that some mafia people sued the government for privacy, and they found out that everything they had said with their phones off was being recorded because your phone microphone can be activated while it's still off. And so this is military intelligence. I didn't know that. But the military in Venezuela told the Indians, take out your batteries because everything we say can be recorded unless the battery is out of your phone. That's called military intelligence. They also told them a lot of other things that I didn't know before. But how did they find out? Military intelligence. Evidently, in carrying out a war, military intelligence is very, very important. And as I considered the fact that God is carrying on a war, I then realized, could it be that He sent us military intelligence? Could it be that God has prepared us to know what the enemy's thinking and what he's saying and what he's going to do next?